Hey guys, this is AI Gaming 1776 and we are getting ready to overclock my GTX 1080 for the first time. Now yes, I am pointing a camera at a monitor, but trust me, this is the best way to make a video like this, and we'll talk about it as things go on. So as you can see, MSI Afterburner is open and we are at vanilla settings. The only thing that I've done is I went ahead and made a custom fan curve because I'm very picky when it comes to fan noise. So I already made a custom fan curve. I already have that set up, but other than that, we are vanilla, all right? We did not add anything to the core or to the overclock. We've not upped the power limit, none of that. And the reason is we are going to want to see how does this card perform out of the box, because when I tell you this is the first time I've overclocked this card, it is absolutely the first time. Now we're going to be doing a live demonstration. I've got the Division popping up right now, and I use the Division for a reason. The two big games that I use to test an overclock are the Division and GTA 5. And I know a lot of people have opinions on what games are good and what games are not good when it comes to testing. And I tell you what, I pretty much stand behind the games I use, and you'll see why as the video goes on. All right, so for starters, if I want to do an overclock, if I want to test an overclock, a lot of people would say, well, why don't you use Firestrike? Why don't you use Unigen or Valley Benchmark or Heaven or any number of benchmarking software utilities? The problem is I've never found a benchmarking utility that I like. Now look how we already can see some things with this game. All right, by the time you get to this screen in the Division, you can see what your clock speed is, which is 1962. That's actually not bad out of the box. That's vanilla. I've done nothing to it. 1962 is pretty good. You can see how hot the GPU is. Right now it's only 58 degrees. By the way, on that top line up there, all right, I don't want to move the camera, but I can zoom in a little bit, all right? So hopefully you can see that. The top line, that's the GPU temperature, the GPU utilization percentage, the GPU fan speed percentage, and then the core clock frequency, which is 1936 megahertz. Below that is the D3, D11, that's your frame rate. Below that is MEM memory, that's how much VRAM we're using. And then the CPU is at 40 degrees, it's at 30% utilization. You can't really see that right now because it's kind of blending in with the background. And then system RAM is on the bottom, all right? So 1936 is what this is at. Let's start the game. I probably should have done that while I was talking here. Let me back this up some. And while this is loading, let me explain to you why I use these two games. Now, I will eventually get around to using the benchmarks, but this is so much faster. To me, this is the fastest humanly possible way to see if your overclock is stable, is to use the Division and Grand Theft Auto 5, all right? If your overclock is decidedly unstable, then the Division will actually crash before it even gets to the character select screen. So if you have a massively unstable overclock, like it is just completely not viable whatsoever, then the Division won't even get to the title screen. So that is a really fast way to find out is this stable or not, because I've gotten halfway through Firestrike before my system crashes, where if, again, I say it again, if your overclock is trash, if it is not going to work, then by the time you get to the title screen of the Division, the character select, you will know it doesn't work. All right. So let's go through here and see if these are my correct settings. They should be. I had a GTX 1070 in here, and what we're getting ready to do is I've never used a 1080 before. I've used 4 different 1070s. I've used a 1060. I've used a 980 Ti, a 980, a 970, a couple 960s. Never used a 1080 yet. All right, so I'm giving this a test run real quick. Now, as you can see, my megahertz have already gone down from something like 1965 to 1924. 1911, you can see that on that top line. All right, so normally with the GTX 1070, this area of the game right here gets anywhere between 60 and 90 frames per second, and it can go into the 50s. That's with a 1070. So all we want to do, literally all we want to do, is run through here. I don't know if I even want to bother engaging in the battle, to be honest. Run through here and at the stock speed of a 1080, see how it compares to when I use an overclocked 1070. And the overclocked 1070 can get anywhere between 60 and 90 frames per second. in this spot with these settings. And as you can see, we're holding on to the 90s pretty well, went into the 80s, the 70s. All right, this is a very nice improvement, and I haven't even overclocked this yet. All right, so let's quit the game. All right, the card got up to 71 degrees right there. Did you see how fast it got up to 71 degrees? Now, this is another reason why I use the Division, is the Division will get your GPU and CPU hot really fast. Okay, so if you're just wanting to find some answers quickly, the Division is good. Now, the thing is, I say the Division and GTA 5 because the Division doesn't give me all the answers I need. Now, if I need to know if the overclock is for real stable, then I have to move over to GTA 5. And to be honest with you, GTA 5 with the settings that I use at 1440p, if the settings are not stable, see, they might work perfectly for Firestrike. They might work perfectly for the Division. But then I play GTA 5 for about 15 minutes and the game crashes. So then I know, okay, it's not long-term stable. I got to go down. And sometimes whatever ends up being stable with the Division ends up having to be as much as 50 megahertz lower in GTA 5. All right, and again, this all comes down to the settings that I use. All right, so let me see. We're going to up the power limit, of course. Now, this is a factory overclocked graphics card. This is an EVGA superclock. I'm almost certain I grabbed the factory overclocked one. It's the $650 version. I think that one's factory overclocked. Now, the thing is when you have a factory overclocked graphics card, sometimes you can put 120 megahertz extra on the core clock right here. Sometimes you can only put 25 megahertz extra on the core clock. It's really squirrely. And okay, so let me back up here. You can use 4 different GTX 1070s, which I have. And with some of them, a plus 25 megahertz does the same thing as a plus 120 megahertz would on a different card. So we're going to have to play a game of figuring this out. All right, so for starters, I'm not even going to touch the memory. Core clock, I'm going to put plus 100. All right. I'm going to put plus, that's 98. I'm actually going to lower it. I'm trying to do 91 with the mouse. There we go. All right, plus 91. And we're going to start the Division, and we are going to see if it immediately crashes, because I don't know what kind of card I'm dealing with. Am I dealing with a card that can handle plus 100, or am I dealing with a card that can only handle plus 50? I've got my GTX 1070 for the win from EVGA. You put plus 61, plus 63, somewhere in that neighborhood on it, and it's very stable, and it stays over 2000 megahertz. All right. Meanwhile, I've got other cards where you could put plus 115, plus 111 to accomplish the same thing. So we're going to find out what we're dealing with. All right, so Afterburner's already popped on, and we haven't crashed yet. We're at the title screen, and we haven't crashed yet. Okay, 2050 megahertz at 57 degrees. All right, so let me tell you how fast I just learned something. Oh, did you see that? When it went from 57 to 58 degrees and went down to 2025. I've told you guys before, Pascal is very, very, very sensitive to temperature. And people like to argue and split hairs over whether or not that means it's throttling. The new thing is, oh, it's not throttling, it's just lowering its boost potential, or there's another fancy way of saying it that people have said. And you're right, it's not throttling in the sense of the card's about to die and it's saving itself, but just sitting here on a title screen and going up 1 degree, we lost 25 megahertz. All right, so what we need to do is we need to see if this can break 2100. And the thing is even the title screen for the Division can break 2100, even though it's just the title screen. Some games, the title screen, like GTA 5, for example, the title screen might loaf around at 1100 megahertz, and it won't ramp up to its real power until the game's fully loaded, like you're in the game world. All right, so plus 91 did not immediately crash, and it was 2050. So we're going to try plus 111. All right, that's about 20 more megahertz. We're going to start the Division. I've been meaning to do this for a long time, to show you guys an overclocking video like this, because the thing is like I've watched lots of pro YouTuber overclocking guides, and they're helpful. It's not as if they're unhelpful, but I never really, I don't even know how to word this. I'll put it like this. The techniques I came up with on my own work better for me, and hopefully they're going to work well for you. And I'll probably title this video like how I overclock my graphics card, so I don't try to sell it as, oh, this is the only way you can do it. All right, so here we go. We're loading 2063 megahertz as it tries to load up the character select screen. That was a big bump in the overclock down to 238 because we're at 58 degrees. So we're like, remember at 58 degrees before, it went from 250 down to 225. So now we're at 238. All right, we're going to back out of here. We want to break 2100 or get darn close to it. Now, some of my Pascal cards can only get up to 2075, 2076 and be stable. All right, so we're going to manually enter it with the keyboard. We had 111 on the core. Let's do one, let's see, one, as I zoom in here, 111, let's try 130. Now, for a factory overclock card, 130 is kind of playing with fire. It's kind of asking for trouble. Because you have to understand, the card is already overclocked. I'm pretty sure it is. Could be wrong. Again, this is the $650 version. I got to go look at the SKU. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. The only thing I cared about with this card was the size of the cooler, the price tag, and a couple other things. What I've learned about Pascal is... All right, let me back up here. With Maxwell, a factory overclock card was... Oh, it crashed. See that? Didn't even get to the character select screen. So 130 is not going to work. So with Maxwell... the factory overclock cards seem beneficial to me, all right? If you did not overclock them any further, you could still have a decent experience. If you did overclock them further, you'd get a little bit more. With Pascal, I've not used one vanilla factory overclock card yet where I was satisfied with the factory overclock. I've always added to it. All right, so 130 was too much. Remember I said we were playing with fire? This might not crack 2100 because 111 didn't crack 2100. So let's try 120. Oops. Is that going to work? There we go. Plus 120. And then go back into the division. See, this is why I like to use the division, because literally within less than 30 seconds, I knew plus 130 was a garbage overclock. It was not going to work. Now, to dial in what my ultimate number is going to be, that does take time. That takes a couple hours because you got to play GTA 5 a little bit. You might play it for 15-20 minutes before it crashes. So then you change it by, like sometimes I feel pretty confident I'm in the right ballpark. That crashed. 120 crashed. This 1080 might not cross 2100. All right, so we know 111 at least got to the title screen and 120 is crashing. All right. So zoom back in, 120 is crashing. I guess I'll do 115. We might have to stick with 111. With factory overclocks, the low 100s seem to be like as high as I've been able to go. Now, my Founders Edition of the GTX 1060, that graphics card, I have like a plus 211 on the core because it's a Founders card. It's not factory overclocked. So you can just go nuts with it. That's at plus 211. So here we go. Hasn't crashed yet. Hasn't crashed yet. As I get a text. Sorry. I do live demos, guys. Oh, it just crashed. Okay, yeah, it crashed. All right, so plus 11. We're at plus 115. That's not the best. That's really not the best. Okay, let's go back to plus 111, which did not at all cross the 2100 megahertz threshold. I would say 2 or 3 of my 4 GTX 1070s. Oh, let me close this real quick because it like shows my info. 2 or 3 of my 4 GTX 1070s, they do cross 2100, and my GTX 1060, that crosses 2100. But this 1080 might not be stable at 2100. It just might not be. Or if it is, if it is, I might have to really play with it off camera. I don't want this video to be too long. So I might have to really play with it off camera. We're almost at a point where I can open this up. Oh, you know what? I meant to show you guys another thing that you ought to do whenever you have a new graphics card. All right. You really need to go into your NVIDIA control panel and make sure that your screen resolution is being respected and your refresh rate. See how this is 60 frames per second in that corner? Now it's probably just because, come on, it's probably just, yeah, this is set for 60. I just put the card in. All right, set that for 144. Tell it yes. Come on. Sometimes it really does not want to respect that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn on the exact same settings that I use with my 1070. And we'll talk about those maybe later in the video. I'm technically using high for the grass on the 1070. I'm in my mini ITX system right now. But I'm going to put the grass on very high because, dang it, this is a 1080. It better be able to handle very high grass. The 1070 can, it won't keep 60 frames per second. All right, so now the game's got to restart. All right, so why am I using a camera? Well, the reason I'm using a camera is all the times that I'm crashing games and everything, whenever I try to do recordings under those kinds of circumstances, I normally have sketchiness in my recording, right? Like my recording can mess up. So by pointing the camera at the TV, or at the monitor in this case, which is a BenQ XL2730Z, while I point the camera at the monitor, I don't have to worry about corrupting my recording. All right, it should be all good. All right, so notice how we're only at 1,342 megahertz on that top line. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's 1,342 megahertz. We're not going to see the real. We're not going to see the real performance, or the real core speed, if you will, the real megahertz, until the game world is fully loaded. All right, that's just how this game works. That's why I use the Division, because the Division is just like quick. You know what I'm saying? Like by the time you get to that character select screen, you are seeing your maximum potential core clock speed. And that's maximum potential. It can go down from there. All right, 2063. A nice 72 frames per second. Oh, wait a minute. In the advanced graphics, I turn high resolution shadows on and I give 6 clicks to these two. Come on. Is it going to crash? It just, no. That got really weird. That got really weird. Everything froze. All right. Did I turn off VSync? Okay, I need to turn VSync off. Oh, wait a minute. Before I do that, let me take a look at the frame rate. And it's stuck in this menu. So now did we crash? Looks like, yeah, we crashed. All right, so 111, I mean, is a no-go. All right, so 111 is a no-go. Man, we're gonna go to 95. All right, we're going to 95, which is only really about 15 megahertz less than what we were before. But it's a big enough drop down that it just might stave off the risk of crashing, hopefully. So see how that works. Oh, come on. Yeah, I want to play the game. Yeah, I know I didn't close the flap on the camera a minute ago, so it's like almost pointless that I'm doing it now, but I just get weird. So many people will try to do things, you know, if they see, like, there's big YouTubers that won't even show you what their Steam name is under, you know, in their Steam catalog when they go into their games and everything and they're using the Steam app. They crop that out because you never know what somebody's going to do. So I apologize for having that shut. I should be able to open it now as the autofocus tries to do its job. All right, so waiting on the game to load up. This is why we use the Division first, because it's a lot faster. As you can see, GTA 5 has a big old rigmarole when it comes to loading things up. Also, GTA 5, where this save file that I have loaded up is a good save file for testing performance. With the GTX 1070 at 1440p, with these same settings, only the grass would be at high instead of very high. It won't even keep 60 frames per second in the area where we're at. Now, in the city, it'll be 90 or 100 frames per second. But in this section, because there's a ton of grass everywhere, in this section, it will not be. All right, so 72 frames per second. That is behaving as if VSync is on. Is it on? Yes, VSync is on. All right, so with this game, here's a trick, okay? Turn VSync off, and then, oh, we got artifacting. The screen just flickered. So even 95 is too much. Okay, we could quit the game right now. We know that 95 is too much. Look at this, GTX 1080, it just went down to 66 frames per second. However, if I had the 1070, it probably would have gone down to 54 frames per second. So yeah. And this section right here, okay, now we're in the 80s. We just went down to 2025. Here's the problem. Look at all that grass. Here's the problem. We already know this overclock is not good because we saw artifacting. That's another thing why I use these two games, is we saw artifacting right away. And usually if your overclock is going to exhibit artifacting, you'll know within the first 10 minutes of playing GTA 5. All right? So, oh yeah, and don't ever let anybody tell you that the 1080 or any kind of, like, don't let anybody tell you that something's overkill, right? Like, this game is not maxed out. This game is totally not maxed out. And we can barely stay above 60 frames per second. Look, we're at 66, 65, 64, 63, 62, 61, 60. Right? Just walking through some grass with a 1080 that I've now manually overclocked to 2025 megahertz. I will tell you this though, I'm pretty disappointed. I'm pretty disappointed that we're already at 2025 megahertz and we have artifacting. So here's what we're going to do. I don't want to make this video be too long. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a review of this computer. It's a mini ITX system. It's got a 6700 non-K processor in it. I did that because it's about 30 watts lower of a TDP than the K version. And in a mini ITX system, it helps. And look, I know it's not an overclocked chip, but it's still a 6700, right? It's not garbage. So it's a 6700 processor. It's 16 gigabytes of 2400 speed DDR4 RAM. Here, I'll go into the city while I talk. How about that? So you don't have to just look at a pause screen. All right. So 16 gigabytes of 2400 speed DDR4. It is an EVGA Stinger Mini ITX case. I have a SanDisk Ultra 2 960 gigabyte SSD. I've got two 120 millimeter Noctua fans inside of this mini ITX case. And then I have this EVGA card. Look, we're over 100 frames in this building. 90, 100. See, we're like just smoking it. We're above 100 frames per second. But when we were in that grassy area, it was a 60. See guys, if you watch my videos, I don't screw around. Do you know how many times I've seen even famous YouTubers trying to show how Grand Theft Auto 5 plays on a certain computer system, and they're using just like not even a part of the game that stresses it, right? Like that grassy section where I have that save file, I know for a fact that grassy section goes down to 60 frames per second or less. It can go down to 48 frames per second with the GTX 1070. Remember, we are playing at 1440p. But so many YouTubers will not show you the demanding sections of a game. Like Rise of the Tomb Raider. Do you know how many times I've seen a YouTuber have tens of thousands of views on their video, or even 100,000 views on their video, but they're playing the beginning of Rise of the Tomb Raider? The problem with that is there's an open area part of Rise of the Tomb Raider that's about an hour into the game. It's at least 30 or 40 minutes, even if you play as fast as you can. And like if you play naturally, if you play normally, it takes about an hour, hour and 15 minutes. You know, if you're actually trying to find things and collect them and stuff like that. And this area that I'm talking about, if the beginning of the game on a computer system will have 70 frames per second, you could be down to 46 frames per second by the time you get to the area I'm talking about. And nobody shows you that area. I'm the only channel that I've ever seen show people that area in a performance test. So that's why I show you this. I always start my GTA 5 videos out in a grassy area. That's actually like the hardest hitting area that I found so far in the game. I used to start over in another area that's kind of grassy. It's not 100% grassy, but it is. Okay, see how we're in the 80s right now? 80s and 90s for the frame rate. The spot that I used to go to, that would be like maybe in the 60s or 70s, whereas the spot that I just went to in this video can go even lower. So I say all that to say, I'm trying to show you guys how things really perform. Now notice we're at 71 degrees and we're down to 2012 megahertz. Now I do have a fan curve set to not go any higher than 57 degrees. And I'm going to be honest with you. Unless you can keep your Pascal card in the 50s, it's almost not worth trying to fight the heat too much, okay? Pretty much every Pascal GPU, even a bad one, I say even a bad one, I've not tried all of them yet, but even the worst Pascal card that I've tested so far, the highest it's going to get to is the low 80s. And I've noticed that once you get into the mid 70s, when it comes to what I describe as throttling on that top line, and I know other YouTubers say it's not throttling, but I've noticed that once you hit the mid 70s, it almost doesn't matter if you go into the low 80s. And the low 80s is about as high as any of them get, including the Founders card. A lot of them, if you put the fan on auto, or even if, okay, like if you, I know I'm jumping all over the place. Please forgive me, guys. It's been a real long week. I'm coming down with a cold, but just hang in there. Let me put the controller down, catch my little mindset together, and explain this. All right. My worst performing aftermarket GTX 1070 is a Zotac amp. Now, if you got a good Zotac amp, good for you. My best performing GTX 1070 is an EVGA for the win. All right. The Zotac amp has a bigger cooler on it, and I'm not sure if it has more power phases or not. There went a flicker, kind of like artifacting, if you will. All right. Oh, we're down to 2,000 megahertz, dang it. Already down to 2,000 once we got up to 72 degrees. So anyway, my Zotac amp 1070, even if I turn the fan up to like 80, 85%, it can still barely stay in the low to mid 70s for the temperature. All right. So what I've learned is to just not fight it. Right? So the reason I'm at 57% for the fan curve is I can make my computer louder, I could put that fan curve higher, and I might, if I'm lucky, get to hold on to about 25 megahertz of my overclock, maybe. Now I'm going to experiment with this 1080 because remember, this 1080, this is the first time I've ever used it in this video. Now it's completely possible that 25 megahertz might be a make or break thing, especially for 4K gaming. We're going to find out. And if it is, then I'll put the fans up higher. But as it is, see how I'm at 74 degrees right now? I'm at 2,000 megahertz. Unless this thing goes into the 1900s, it's not going to be worth it for me to try to fight it. So that's why my fan's so low, because I know somebody's going to say, well, just turn your fan up. But the thing is the 1080 is an expensive card. And by the time I spend as much money as I have, I mean, this is a $650 card, and this is one of the cheaper 1080s, all right? So by the time that I have spent $650 on a card, it's not good enough for it to just give me high frame rates. I also don't want it to be really loud. Now, if this was like, oh man, what's a good example? Let's go back to the GTX 960. Okay, let's go back to Maxwell, the GTX 960. You could get a 960 2 gig with a cheap cooler on it for 180 bucks. Or you could get like a 4 gig for the win from EVGA, and it would be almost 300. It'd be like $275, $268, somewhere in that range. All right. So when you were in that scenario, and that's still cheaper than the 970 was, right? The 970 was still going to be more than that. It's going to be more than 275 in most cases. So with that 960, I experimented. I tried a For the Win 4 gigabyte card, and yeah, it had a higher overclock and it was quieter, but the $180 card almost kept up with it performance-wise, and it was just hotter and louder, and it did throttle a little bit. Now, why do I say all that? When you're talking about cheap cards and saving money, I'm willing to put up with some heat and some noise. But when you're talking about a $650 card, now all of a sudden I do start caring about things like noise. Now, a lot of people might be like, oh, we'll just put on headphones or whatever, and that's fine. If you don't care about noise, crank the fan up. Now, here's the problem, though. This thing's already got artifacting even at a relatively low overclock. Out of all my Pascal cards, this is probably my second lowest overclock, and I have 6 Pascal cards right now. I have one 1080, one 1060, and 4 1070s. And the only thing that overclocks lower than this is my Zotac amp 1070. That overclocks lower than this. This overclock right here is not a very good overclock. As a matter of fact, in the same computer, I had my For the Win 1070 from EVGA, and that thing, like, it went down to the low 2000s, but it was flicker free, it was artifact free, and it still definitely stayed above 2000. Whereas this is at 2000, and I'm at 74 degrees, and I'm nervous that if I go up another 2 or 3 degrees, I might go below 2000 megahertz, which would be disappointing, I'm not going to lie. Alright, so I got to dial this overclock in, and the problem is we know the range that we're dealing with. We're at plus 95. Let's quit the game and I'll show you. Let's go back and look at my Afterburner. Alright, let's go back and look at Afterburner and wrap this video up. Because remember, we're at plus 95 for the overclock. Come on, don't bother me. Here, alright, zoom in. I do kind of dislike when you mouse over things, like how much screen that takes up. That's just ridiculous. Alright, so plus 95 is giving us artifacting, but it's not crashing, not yet anyway. So we know we're in the ballpark now. Now notice I haven't even overclocked the memory yet, because what I do is I see what my stable core clock is first, then I start playing with the memory. Alright, so here's what I'm going to do. After I end this video, what I'll do is I will see how low I need to go to get rid of that artifacting. If I had to guess, I might need to go as low as 80, but hopefully like 91, plus 91, and see we have plus 95 right now. All right, let me zoom in. See, core clock megahertz, plus 95. Now, I'm hoping that going to plus 91 fixes it, because when you're at this stage of the game where it's not crashing, it's just a little bit of flickering or a little bit of artifacting, you usually don't have to come down too far. I might have to, I don't know, we'll find out. I might have to go down as low as plus 80 or even plus 70, which that would be disappointing. But I think plus 80 to plus 91 is where this is going to settle. If I had to guess on the memory clock, I'll probably have anywhere, I've had some cards like my For the Win card, like plus 90 is about as high as you want to go on that For the Win card. So I'm prepared to only be able to go plus 90 on the memory. Well, remember, this is already factory overclock, probably. I think it is. It better be. Anyway, I don't care if it is or not. It's just the fact that I can only put such small additions to the core clock that better be already factory overclocked. And you saw it was running over 1900 megahertz out of the box. Alright, so if I had to guess, my memory is going to be anywhere from, let's call it plus 80 to plus 250. You never know. You never know with these graphics cards. There's the whole silicon lottery BS. So that's where we're at. Alright, hopefully this video has been helpful for you guys. I could run a whole bunch of benchmarks over and over and over again. The thing is I've had games ace all of the Firestrike tests. There's 3 different Firestrike tests, and I've had graphics cards make it through all 3 of them, not crash, not artifact, post valid results, and then I play GTA 5 and the game crashes. So that has taught me to test it in game. And again, when I do the division, I can find out if my overclock is just too high. I can find out before it even gets to the character select screen, within 30 seconds or less. So that's why I do it this way. So again, hopefully this video has been helpful for you guys. And again, I had to use a camera because I didn't want to corrupt the recording. I didn't want to go through all this and corrupt the recording. And here's the thing, is I wanted this to be a genuine video. I wanted to genuinely not know how well this card could overclock, and we could do this together. All right. So hopefully you guys have appreciated this. This has been AI Gaming 1776. I appreciate you guys. By the way, I think it was in July, I did a thank you video for 2,500 subscribers, and we've almost got 3,100 now at the beginning of September for my channel. That's a lot of new people coming on board, and I thank you. I thank you so much for that. And if you're a new watcher and you want to come on board, you're more than welcome. Just so you guys know, I test AMD, NVIDIA, and that's for GPUs, but with CPUs, I test AMD and Intel. I test i5s, i7s, AMD FX chips, mini ITX systems, mid towers, and I just put together a Be Quiet case, which to me, it's the new 900, right? The Dark Base 900. It's bigger than a mid tower, but I don't know if I'd call it like a full size. I'd have to look it up. It doesn't quite strike me as a full size, but it might be. But I have water cooling in that one. It's not fancy. It's the EK Predator 360. But the point being is I test a lot of different configurations. All right. And I share that info with you guys, and I test a lot of games. I show you what the best settings are for games. I show you how games perform at the max settings. And I do it, again, like we talked about earlier in this video with GTA 5, I do it in the demanding sections of the game. Like Mankind Divided, Deus Ex, Mankind Divided. I have not been able to do performance videos of it yet because I don't have freedom yet, right? Like I'm still in some early missions. I'm like almost 2 hours into the game, but I don't have that freedom yet. And I've noticed that when you play a game, the beginning of it normally has higher frame rates, like with Tomb Raider, Rise of the Tomb Raider. And then once you get into that open world area, all of a sudden your frame rate starts going down, right? So I don't just put out videos as fast as I can to get views. I take time to do the right thing for you guys, right? I take time to show you how games really perform. This channel is the real deal. And I know a lot of you appreciate it. And if more of you want to appreciate it, then I'd appreciate you. Just have a big old appreciation party. All right, so thanks for watching, guys. This has been AI Gaming 1776. And at some point, I will tell you what my ultimate overclock was dialed in for this. And remember, it's in an ITX case. Now, granted, I have a couple of Noctua 120mm fans inside this case. It's a Node 202 case. And that actually brings temperatures down further, because if I didn't have those fans in there, chances are pretty strong this card would have gotten to the 80s, right? For that temperature. It's possible if I took this card out of this machine and put it into a proper mid tower with even better airflow, there's a really good chance I could overclock this higher, possibly. I don't know. I've seen mixed results. Sometimes you do get a worse overclock in an ITX case. Sometimes you don't. Again, it's all luck of the draw. It's all the lottery. But here's the thing. This 1080 is because I've been working on a series for the ultimate mini ITX computer, and I tried it with a 1070, guys. I gave it an honest effort. And with my 1070s, I just could not be satisfied because I didn't want it to just be 1080p. I wanted to be able to do 1440p and 4K gaming within reason. Granted, a 1070 or 1080 are not going to dominate 4K, I know that, but within reason, so I could play 4K on a television, right, on a 4K TV. So, with all that said, you know, even this 1080 went down to 60 frames per second in GTA 5 at 1440p with it not maxed out. So that's going to be a lot to chew on. I would hate to have to get a Titan XP because, man, I'll tell you what, I'm going to need a lot more views on my videos for me to afford to buy a Titan XP. I don't exactly get them handed to me, you know what I'm saying? So, that's a lot of talking, and hopefully this video has been useful. Thanks for watching, guys. Please tell your friends about this channel and the work that I do and the things that I cover, because I am definitely trying to give back to the PC gaming community. When I got into PC gaming, there are several good people who helped me figure things out. Simple things, right? Like such the simplest things when you build your own computer for the first time. Things that you wouldn't know as a first time builder. And I've had so much help and so much love in this community, and I try to give back by showing people what the best settings are and how to get good performance and things like that. So please tell your friends. Thanks for listening to me ramble. This has been a live demonstration. This has been AI Gaming 1776, and you have yourselves an excellent day.